Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Big Daddy Top Hat here. When it comes to the history of children's television shows, few were hotter than the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, resulting in one of the biggest crazes of the latter portion of the 1980s. The franchise that was birthed from a comic book led to feature-length live-action movies, toys, clothing ranges, and of course video games. The classic era of Turtles would give us many cutting-edge classics, such as Turtles Arcade and Turtles in Time, which were not just great Turtles games, but great video games in general. As of today, the children who grew up on these titles are now grown adults, some of whom have chosen to channel their nostalgia for the brand by even going as far as to create video games of their own. In this episode on the channel, we are going to look at and examine one of these efforts by checking out one of the more high quality Turtles passion projects. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the story of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Red Sky Battle, another awesome fan-made game. Yeah! The impact back in the day that the Turtles had on mainstream culture is undeniable, with the ripple effect of that era of entertainment still heavily being felt right up until this very day. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles brand may have adapted and evolved over time in order to reach new generations of children, but that early millennial and late Gen X crowd still identify with Turtles looking, well, like this. Gaming nostalgia from this era is so strong and in demand that it is now even being channeled in an official capacity, with the ongoing development of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, a 4-player, old-school, arcade-inspired beat-em-up reminiscent of the franchise's glory days, set to be published by Dotemu, the same Dotemu who would harness that generation's fondness for brawlers recently, with the release of Streets of Rage 4. But prior to corporate companies coming to the realisation that there was money to be made from such an endeavour, passionate fans were instead plugging that very gap. Examples of this we have covered on this channel in the past include Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Cowabunga, a platforming game that was created that shared a graphical style in line with the old 8-bit monochrome Game Boy, which has amazing chiptune music to boot. Perhaps one of the most ambitious of all of these projects though was a game we looked at called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Rescuepalooza, a huge video game created using the OpenBor format, which features a gigantic roster of playable characters from the Turtles universe, along with a ton of influence in terms of stage design from all of the major video games that saw release throughout the golden age of the amphibious foursome. And yes, before any smart aleck points it out, I am more than aware that turtles are not classified as amphibians, but they are certainly suited for both land and water in the same way as a hovercraft. Therefore, turtles are indeed amphibious, so there. While both of these projects are amazing in their own right, gameplay wise they have more in common with the 8-bit Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles games than they do with the more popular entries from the series. By far, the two most fondly remembered Turtles games are the original Turtles arcade game and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Turtles in Time, also simply abbreviated to be known as TIT. You'll be pleased to know that the focus of today, Red Sky Battle, plays like the latter, so this could very well be the extra Turtles experience that many of you are perhaps looking for. To fully understand the Red Sky Battle though, we first have to mention the creation of another Turtles fan game, known as Wrath of the Shredder, from which I can see began development around 2007. The game's creator, going by the username of BonusJZ, made a post on Technodrome forums in April of that year, stating that his game was 95% complete and would be compatible with PC, Windows and other formats. Available on YouTube are recent playthroughs of this game, but to put it simply, this is a title that features old school classic era sprite work, but mixes it with stage background assets from much newer Turtles games, i.e. the Turtles video games that were made available on the Game Boy Advance. In fact, the first stage background in the Wrath of Shredder is from the 2007 GBA game by Ubisoft, a title that came out the very same year that this fan game was created. With regards to the GBA title, I would love to cover it in detail on here in the future, as many who have played it consider it to be one of the greatest Turtles games ever made. The issue for me though is because it does not feature classic era sprite work, I feared that if I made a standalone video on such a game, I do not have the correct audience base installed to this channel for enough of you to actually care. I already have evidence of this from when I uploaded a video on the 2003 Turtles GBA game. The only Turtles video in my sprawling series that has not performed well views-wise. It appears that most of you oldies are a stubborn bunch, and if the Turtles do not look like this, it's not your nostalgia, so you don't click. But to put into perspective how much of an important game that Ubisoft's 2007 Turtles game was, the development team who worked on the game would consist of many of the same staff who would go on to create Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, a title many consider one of the best beat-em-up video games ever made, even though the genre was completely out of fashion at the time that the game was made available to the market. Speaking of this team, the same staff are being used to create the upcoming Shredder's Revenge game, so with both the 2007 Turtles game under their belt and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, expectations are extremely high that the first official game celebrating the classic era of the franchise since the mid-90s is indeed going to be a bit special. Now, in regards to the 2007 fan game, The Wrath of Shredder, BonusJZ's 8-minute preview of the game, according to a forum post, would end up being pulled from YouTube due to the content reportedly being blocked by Lionsgate. Which is not that surprising, to be fair, especially considering the assets were used for the title from a new-to-the-market game. While playable versions of the game are available to play online as of now, this fan game inspired by the Turtles would spawn yet another fan game inspired by the Turtles, which is how the game Red Sky Battle would come into existence. Technodrome forum posts from 2011 discussing this new fan project note that someone in Russia would decide to pick up Wrath of Shredder where BonusJZ had left off, creating another fan game in its image. This would be confirmed by another user by the name of ProIgrock, explaining that it was his game, and stumbled across people discussing his work through Google. He would explain that Red Sky Battle was quickly spreading in terms of popularity, not only through Russia, but within Ukraine and Belarus too. The Turtles fan project that came from Russia with love is described by ProIgrock to have been developed exclusively for personal computers, as there was no time to work at console versions. To create the game, he would use materials from many different Turtles games from the classic era, as well as of course the high quality Ubisoft 2007 GBA game. Mixing all of these elements together, he felt that he could create something new and interesting. He reveals that in the end he got tired of waiting for the BonusJZ Turtles project, so would simply just make his own Turtles game, but with blackjack and hookers. Well, I made the last part up, but you get the gist. To give you a quick rundown of how ProIgrock described his project in 2011, he states that he wanted to create a project that adhered to the original concept of the classic era of Ninja Turtles, something which I have mentioned in this video that the corporate gaming world have only just seemed to realise is in demand as of now. 10 years prior though, Igrock was here presenting a game that featured all graphics in a 16-bit palette, featuring playable characters made in the style of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Turtles in Time, the most celebrated game in the entire series. He would try to create stages with many layers and try to recreate the AI as close as possible to Turtles in Time. To top it off, he would add new life bars and include features such as allowing Donatello to perform charge attacks and enabling the Turtles to be able to execute roundhouse kicks against enemies. This means players can protect themselves when enemies are attacking from both sides. Channeling more arcade fun, he would create a skateboard stage and include a block feature to protect players against certain attacks. He would also add the classic damage combo system and include original sounds created by a user who goes by the name of Smoke. Ground, air and mixed combo moves were also added, as well as original fonts, a game menu, etc. To give the game an edge of replayability, there are also a number of unlockables included, from hidden playable characters to an additional survival mode. A decent amount of effort appears to have been put into this passion project. Red Sky Battle, like the Wrath of Shredder before it, brings classic era action in its opening stage into the stunning Ubisoft 2007 Turtles environment, allowing for nostalgic action in an atmosphere that many appreciators of the golden era of the franchise would have never seen before. There are foot soldiers aplenty to take out, many who enter the scene in convertibles, and amusingly the walls of the buildings are often covered by posters promoting the Sega Dreamcast and Xbox of all things. There is a lot going on in this cool opening stage, and I have to say I do appreciate a combo count being present when taking on foes, a feature that was certainly not a thing in the franchise's games during the 80s and 90s. The opening stage culminates in a boss fight against familiar opponent Rocksteady. Another new feature to the game that certainly was not around in Turtles Arcade or TIT is after completing a stage being given a choice of branching paths like say in Final Fight 3 or Golden Axe 3. One route for example provides the player with a sewer surfing like experience riding a hoverboard through a train underground network, nicking more high quality backgrounds from the GBA. Well, and foregrounds in this instance too, as trains often pass the scene in front of the playable characters. See the sort of cool stages we were missing out on if we were too stubborn to move past the classic era? This stage finishes off with a boss fight against an opponent from the Super Nintendo version of Turtles in Time, the Rat King. Moving back to the first stage, if gamers opt to choose the other route, gamers are taken down into the sewers, where by the looks of things, the stage background of this level seems to have been pinched from the 2003 GBA Turtles game. You know, the games that I made a video about, which only a few of you actually watched. No, I am not bitter about this at all. Not me, no, but the stage contains typical brawler action, taking out foot soldiers and mousers before eventually taking on Leatherhead, another boss from the TIT game. Stage 3 takes place out on the streets with those drill thingies from the Turtles arcade game coming through the floor, unleashing wave after wave of foot soldiers against our heroes. This stage is also notable for unleashing biking opponents against the player with a boss fight against a Bebop to close out of the level's action. Nice. Next we are brought to Further Street. These ones however are from one of the classic entry games rather than the GBA era. A rainbow of foot soldier variants must continue to be contested against before further familiar foe begin to pop up throughout the stage too. Midway through this one, a scene play showing Rocksteady, Bebop and Shredder himself holding April O'Neil hostage before a boss battle commences against the combined forces of Rocksteady and Bebop within the interior of a supermarket. Or as the French say, supermarché. Defeating them leads to another cutscene depicting April's rescue before moving on to the next stage, giving us another awesome looking Ubisoft environment, this time atop building rooftops. Seeing these stages within the game really shows off how awesome these assets look, potentially even more beautiful than the environments from the 2D games that came before it. It is just more old school beat 'em up action from here, with this stage ending with a fight against Metalhead. If players have chosen a different route after the one-on-one fight with Bebop earlier, then they could have advanced into this GBA game diner instead, where the action is made more realistic by including the addition of civilians hiding behind counters and under tables. Good stuff. Like the other route the players have the option to take, April and Neil must be rescued by defeating Rocksteady and Bebop together. The next stage involves riding atop a truck as a fight commences atop it, with a red sky looming in the background. One could say that a Red Sky Battle is going on. Yeah. Again, like other stages and beat 'em ups in general, many ways of opponents must be beaten, culminating with a boss fight, in this stage's instance against the aerial Baxter Stockman. There is also a junkyard stage where it looks exactly like it sounds, with even steamrollers that can flatten our green chums, with players eventually moving the action to the interior of a warehouse, where a boss fight takes place against Razor. Stage 7 moves action to a rainy street, showing off more Ubisoft era beauty. Like other levels, the enemy wave ferocity continues to intensify as players approach the end of the game. This one ends with a fight against Metalhead, who has Slash with him this time too, offering a tougher challenge than previously. But yeah, for this game, as far as I can tell, this is indeed in fact the final challenge. All in all, rounding off a play experience that offers a bit of classic style Turtles action, reworked with many modern assets to bring us something slightly different. From what I can see online, since the release of this game, in more recent years the game's creator has made a new Red Sky project containing new playable characters, updated old characters, new level graphics, music and sound, character sprites, and a new final boss challenge. So maybe we will look at that game down the line on here too. Let me know if you want that one. To summarise today's video, if you're desperate for some old school Turtles arcade-like action and are simply too excited to wait for the brand new game from Detomu, then Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Red Sky Battle may be the perfect video game for you to try out during the meantime. It certainly ticks all the right boxes as far as arcade brawlers are concerned anyway. So ladies and gentlemen, that was the story of Red Sky Battle, a Russian Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles video game. Let me know down in the comment section what you thought of today's video, and if you have a decent amount of experience with fan games, please feel free to let me know which title you believe I should highlight on here next. I would be curious to hear your thoughts. Speaking of Turtles, I have made plenty of videos providing coverage of this subject over the years. And I know that most of you skipped my 2003 episode, so whether you're a new viewer or not, I demand that you watch that episode now. There is a good game to be discussed there. Finally, I would like to give a huge thank you to everyone who gets enough enjoyment from my content that you have even decided to back my work on Patreon. Your fan support is paramount in securing the future of this channel, so I cannot thank you enough for your contributions. With that said, special shout outs go out to Sebastian Velez, a Murderer of Crows, Cole Johnson, Heo Paulo Lopez, Nostalgia Collector, Ben Harradine, Koryai Marsh Sr., Capcom vs SNK, Ron Dinched, Evan Balder, Philip Namph, Azra Arkai, Joaquin Varela, Michael Cullix, Ego, Jordan Durant, Angel Light 85, Ian Boyle, Nick Daniels, Princess Zana, Daniel Daly, Computer Man, House of a Ted, Gary Pinkett, EC Professor, Johnny Holly, August Piazza, Justin Wang, Hermes Gonzalez, Instant Gratification Monkey, Man Shovel, James Bishop, JB, Michael Hall, Wesley Sanghi, Drew Peacock, Langston Miller, Noob, Sarah Powell, Blaming Renee, Marvin O'Liga, TOG Driver, Adrian Hannington, Bernard NG, Dan Van Dammit, Louis Viant, John Bates, David Bow, Chris Fisk, Mike Bruno, Rick67, Antonio Rodriguez, Craig Jenkins, Retroverse.com, Casey Wright, Synth Spaces, Punk Toast, Gunther Hendricks, and everybody else who backs my work over on Patreon. You are simply amazing! Yeah, cheerio.